But if you do warn the wicked person, and they do not turn from their wickedness or from their evil ways, they will die for their sin, but you will have saved yourself. Again, when a righteous person turns from their righteousness and does evil, and I put a stumbling block before them, they will die. Since you do not warn them, they will die for their sin. The righteous thing that the person did will not be remembered, and I will hold you accountable for their blood. But if you do warn the righteous person not to sin, and they do not sin, they will surely live because they took warning, and you will have saved yourself.
Good morning. It's good to be with you, especially on a beautiful day like this. I want to direct your attention to the banners in front of you. We've been talking about this year, and actually for a few years, we're going to be looking at how to be established as disciples, true disciples, and we're drawing from 2 Timothy chapter 3 about how Scripture helps us to achieve that. And there's a list of several words that are included in that about how we are to treat one another and how we express our discipleship. And the first one at the top of the list is love or loving. You'll also notice at the bottom of the list there's a circle with a heart in it. And I want us to remember in all the things that we prepare for. And in our classes, we're studying, some of us, fundamental Christianity, fundamental doctrines of Scripture, or fundamental realities. It's very easy to get caught up into the logistics. It's very easy to get caught up in the structure. When you're building something, it's very easy to focus on what it is that you're welding together or what you're bolting together or what you're carving and lose perspective of why are we doing this in the first place. And love is our ultimate motive in everything that we do, and it's our ultimate motive in discipleship, both ours and creating in others, helping them to create a relationship with God. It comes from love. It's easy when you focus on evangelism, per se, to begin to see it as production. It's adding to the church. We want souls to be saved, and those souls can become kind of nameless people. And I want you to understand that you can get lost in that and focus on, are we being productive, are we being non-productive, and you forget, why are we doing this? Paul talked about that in 1 Corinthians in chapter 13, which has been called the chapter of love. And he describes to a great extent what love is, but he begins the chapter by talking about, I can speak in the tongues of angels. I can have all the wisdom in the world. I can have all the gifts and talents, but if I haven't love, what does it gain? What does it prosper? There's no purpose for it. It's useless. It's meaningless if it's not motivated by an expression of love. Now, the challenge to us is we all define love by how we do it. So if we're mean to people, well, they deserve it. If we're rude, it's, well, I'm just trying to get them to do this or that or whatever. So we make how we treat people, we define that as love. That becomes our definition of love, and that's how we justify at times being unloving, because my definition of love includes slapping your face. It includes being sarcastic to you. It includes being critical of you and all of those kinds of things, because that's how I'm helping you. See, that's our justification. When really love is only learned by how God loves and is demonstrated through Christ. Let's look at some examples of folks who reached out in evangelism. John chapter 1, verse 40, one of the two who heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He found first thing he did, he found his own brother Simon and said to him, we found the Messiah, which translated means Christ. He brought him to Jesus. I don't think that he got up that day and said, I need to convert somebody today. I need to share the gospel to somebody today. I think what happened is he made a discovery and he wanted to share that. Why did he want to share it? Because he loved his brother. He wanted his brother to find what he had found out of love. It's not, I have a responsibility, and that may or may not be true, but that's not the motive. I want you to see in a similar way. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, we found him of whom Moses and the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nathanael said to him, can any good thing come out of Nazareth? Philip said to him, come and see. Jesus saw Nathanael coming and said to him, behold, an Israelite indeed in whom there is no guile. We got two brothers and we got two friends here. One brother turned. First thing he did is went and got his brother. One friend, as soon as he discovered, and he was excited about his discovery, as soon as he did, he went and found his best friend. And both of these guys brought somebody to Jesus. They didn't convert them. They didn't share the gospel with them. They brought them to the one who could. In fact, they brought them to the gospel himself. Now, what's interesting about that is later on what happens. These two individuals who brought someone that they loved dearly, and because they loved them dearly, now there were certain Greeks among those who were going to worship at the feast. These therefore came to Philip, who was with Bethsaida in Galilee, and began to ask him, saying, Sir, we wish to see Jesus. And Philip came and told Andrew. And Andrew and Philip came, and they told Jesus. These two guys who had taken a brother and a friend to Jesus later, you see, they became kind of known as guys that could get you to Jesus. And so they were approached by men, these same two men, who now are united in this thing about, let me show you Jesus. Folks knew who to find in order to find Jesus. So it came to Philip, who'd taken Nathanael. He brought him to Andrew, who'd brought Peter, and together they brought them to Jesus. What a great ministry. But it started out with their love. It started out with, this person's got to hear this because this is such great news. Now, we've talked about evangelism, how we have an offense and a defense in the church. And he gave some to be apostles, some as prophets, and some as evangelists, some as pastors and teachers, for the equipping of the saints for the work of service to the building up of the body of Christ, from whom the whole body, being fitted and held together by that which every joint supplies, according to the proper working of each individual part, causes the growth of the body for the building up of itself in love. So he describes in verse 11, there are some who are evangelists. What's their purpose? To equip people. Specifically to equip evangelists about how to be evangelists. Not everybody, but those who have that gift. Teachers teach, shepherds shepherd, evangelists evangelize. They are the offense. And what I mean by that is they're not offensive. They're the ones that are proactive. They go into all the world. They share the word. Then there are those who are on the defense. And if you're not an evangelist and you're not on the offense, then you're on the defense. But sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts, always being ready to make a defense to everyone who asks you to give an account for the hope that is in you, yet with gentleness and reverence. That's respect for God, respect for humans. That's compassion. So we're either evangelists who evangelize the world, or we're on God's defense, and our lives demonstrate difference, and folks ask, why do you have this hope? Now, if they ask, why do you have this hope, it's because they've seen that you have it. They've seen different. But I want you to understand, those who are on the defense, they are just like Philip and Andrew. They bring people they love to Jesus. Why? That's what love does. That's love personified. Love personified is to bring folks to God is love. Now, the problem in all of this, and as we establish vision and set goals about how to be permanently evangelistic and also how to be permanent disciple building, and that's what this is about. You see, evangelism is just the beginning of building disciples. As Jesus said, The 3 parts to the Great Commission: go into all the world, preach the gospel, baptize them, teach them to observe all that I've commanded you. That's discipleship in a nutshell. It starts with evangelism, and it begins with teaching them to observe all things, and that takes the rest of our lives. But in the process of that, as I mentioned before, evangelism and discipleship can become about production. Production's about outcome. Production's about numbers. Production is about like sales. Production is producing rather than experience. You see, evangelism can be programmed. All right, we're going to teach you how to get over when people say, I'm not interested. Well, how to overcome that. We're going to teach you how to sit down and go from this verse to this verse to this verse, and we're going to teach you how to be productive. And you can actually do that without caring a lick about anybody. You can actually do that while you hate people, because you're productive. Because you've got a task and you're performing it. So how many nameless souls can we reach out to? How many souls can be added to the church or kingdom? It's like sales goals. Do you know these souls have a name? Do you know they have trials? Do you know that they love? Do you know they fear? Do we care? Or is it just another notch on my Bible? I have fulfilled my great commission. See, it so easily becomes about me. So does the other part. Why do we not tell our friends? Why do we not share with our friends? Because they may not like me. You see, that's about me. We've learned from Christ that love is putting yourself on the cross for others, regardless of how they respond to it. And so we convince ourselves, you know, it would be rude for me to bring it up. That's love. My love is I don't share it because I don't want to get into somebody's way. I don't want to make someone feel uncomfortable. I don't want to make an enemy. Do you hear all the I's in that? I. Unfortunately, sales involve people who must give consent. You know what salesmen hate the worst? Is that they have to get you to agree. It'd be so much easier if you just hand them your checkbook and then they could achieve their goal of selling you whatever it is they have to sell you. But they have to gain your consent. And so they have to learn. They go to all kinds of sales training about how to overcome your lack of consent. And rather than helping you find something that fits you, something you actually need, they have an agenda. I need to sell something, regardless of whether you have a need for it. And if you don't have a need, let me create a need in you so that I can sell it, so that I can achieve my quota, so that I can have the income that I need to feed my family. All I need is your consent, but I have to get you to offer your consent. And that's the pain of the whole thing in sales, is getting you to agree. That's what evangelism can become. Countering obstacles, countering defenses, countering arguments. Rather than understanding, I'm sharing something that I'm ecstatic about because I love you. But you don't know me. Yes, but while we were yet in sin, Christ died for all of us. He loved us before he knew us. He loved us before we were created. God so loved the world before the majority of the world even came to be. That's how God loves. So rather, who's responsible to close the sale? Is it the offense or the defense? If I bring someone to church, whose responsibility is it to convert them? Who is going to fulfill? Who's going to achieve the goal? Because that's the goal. We've got to get them into Christ. We've got to get them into the church. We've got to get them saved. We gotta. That's obeying a command. without a heart. And you can obey commands without a heart. Because so many folks in the Old Testament, heart was irrelevant. What I want you to understand is heart is foundational. Without it, what good is your commission? What good is your evangelistic skill? What good is how great you can think about your defense if you don't have love? And I will guarantee you this, if you don't have love, that's the first message everyone will receive. And it will make it challenging to accept the rest. Because they know that you're fulfilling an obligation, and they're just in the way of you fulfilling your obligation because they haven't given you consent to be baptized. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a commitment to a commission without a love for the law. And those do not coexist necessarily. 2 Kings chapter 7, probably the greatest example of evangelism. Now, it's not evangelistic. This is a metaphor. When these lepers came to the outskirts of the camp, they entered one tent and ate and drank, carried away from their silver and gold and clothes, and they went and hid them. And they returned and entered another tent and carried from there also and went and hid them. You see, as lepers, they were living outside of the city. The city had been besieged. Folks inside were starving. And they woke up in the morning and the enemy was gone. And so they started foraging around in their tents. And they had left everything behind because in their haste in night, they had gotten up and run. And these lepers who are outcasts, these lepers who are outside the gates because they're lepers, found this. And they started eating and drinking their fill. They took gold and silver and they buried it. They took clothing. They took all the things they didn't have. Then they said to one another, "We are not doing right. This day is a day of good news, but we are keeping silent. If we wait until morning light, punishment will overtake us. Now, therefore, let us go and tell the king's household, we have found riches. We have found everything that we need to live. We have found abundance. We have found living water. And it is wrong for us to keep hold of this and to call that love. And to call that, I'm doing what's best for them. They should have known. They should have anticipated. The move towards socialism in our country is about the idea of share. It's not right for somebody to have a lot, somebody to have very little. It's not right for somebody to live in abundance, somebody to live in poverty. Did you know the motive behind that is love? Everybody should have what they need. He who has more than he needs should share it with he that doesn't. But they're not doing it, so maybe we need to force that. It comes from a motive of love. The haves and haves not is a moral issue in our culture right now. And it is one of the most prevalent moral issues being argued about, is what do you do with wealth inequality, inequity? You can make the same argument about those who have found the wealth of the treasure with no price, because it's priceless. Of those who have found the greatest gift of all and hoard it, it's immoral. Our culture would say that's immoral. Why do some have and hoard and others suffer? Why is salvation hoarding? Why do you keep it to yourself if you have a blessing? Like the leper said, fellas, what we're doing is not right. And tomorrow we're going to be judged for this. When they discovered what we knew and that we did not tell them, they are going to, they're going to punish us. Why is salvation hoarded? Why is bread withheld from the starving? Where's the love? Is there any greater cruelty than withhold the gospel from people who will burn eternally in hell? Now, if it's not good news to you, it'll never become good news to them. If your idea about your friends or loved ones is you have an agenda, you've got a productivity, you need to increase numbers, you have forgotten the joy of the message. The message has become old to you. And it doesn't thrill your heart anymore. To tell me the old story just becomes boring. We've heard it. And you've lost your passion. The reason Philip and Andrew did what they did is because of the passion of what they had discovered. Boy, if you lose your passion, you've lost your love. And if you've lost your first love, you have nothing to share. And if you have nothing to share, you are in horrible spiritual poverty. Why not let them decide? You say, well, I don't want to embarrass them. I don't want to put them on. Why don't you let them decide that? Because what you're offering them is a choice. Will you find life or you will reject life? It's your choice. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm going to present the message of Jesus, and then it's up to you to decide what to do with that. The church is no better or worse if you become part of it. I'm no better or worse if you become part of it. God is no better or worse. Jesus is no better or worse. You're the one that wins, and nobody else loses. There's no agenda here. I'm not trying to put a notch anywhere. I love you. And I want to see you in heaven. I want to see you face to face. But I would not ever abuse your right to choose, your freedom to choose. And I will continue to love you no matter what you choose. Because my object is to love you, not convert you. If you love the gospel will convert you. And then you and I will be together for eternity. And that brings my heart joy. Friend, the idea of you being in a lake of fire for eternity, I wouldn't wish that on my worst. How can I call you friend? How can I say I love you if I do not even suggest to you that you can avoid that and that that's a reality? If Jesus is rejected, so be it. Guys, if you're dying in the desert, would you drink stale water from a rusty bucket? The answer is, depends on how thirsty you are. I want you to know that you and I are just rusty buckets. We have very little to offer. We've got very little. We're not shiny. We're not pretty. We are, to a great extent, ineffective. But there's water in us. And that water is the well of life. That water soothes the thirsty soul. It's not about the bucket. It's not about your ability. It's not about, all it is about your love. And that bucket is carrying the water, as rusty and as stale as the water is. It's carrying it so that someone will drink it. That's its purpose. There's many that will reject living water. That's not blood on your hands. And if that ends your friendship, you're not much of a friend. There's a song we used to sing. It's not in our books anymore. And I want to end with this song because it's a pertinent song. And Charles, I know you remember this song. You never mentioned him to me. I wish we would sing it because the words remind us. Brothers and sisters, we got a whole world that we love, I hope. We got a whole world that needs stale water from a rusty bucket. We've got a world that's crying out in parched, thick-tongued thirst. When in the better land, before the bar we stand, how deeply grieved our souls may be. If any lost one there should cry in deep despair, you never mentioned him to me. You never mentioned him to me. You helped me not the light to see. You met me day by day and knew I was astray. Yet you never mentioned him to me. Oh, let us spread the word where'er it may be heard. Help groping souls the light to see. That yonder none may say, you showed me not the way. You never mentioned him to me. A few sweet words may guide a lost one to his side, or turn sad eyes on Calvary. So work as days go by, that yonder none may cry. You never mentioned him to me. One of the things that I like about this song is it doesn't say you converted me or you presented the gospel. You mentioned. And in the mention, maybe it goes nowhere. But in eternity, they can't say you didn't mention him. In mention, it may become, well, tell me why you believe. And you can offer a defense for the hope that you have in you. Or you, like Philip or Andrew, can take them to an evangelist and say, this person better than me can explain this to you. And they will go because you love them. They respect you. And now by proxy, they will respect who you take them to. And who you take them to is not an evangelist. It's Jesus in the form of an evangelist. Like Philip and Andrew were taking them to Jesus. And all it needs to start with is a mention. Can you mention him? Will you mention him? Friends don't let friends or acquaintances die lost without knowing it. As was read earlier, the watchman. If I tell you a prophecy and you don't share with them and they're lost because they disobey it, their blood is on your hand. If you tell them and they don't listen, you're good. Their blood is on them. To me. Brothers and sisters, you may need to make a public acclamation. You may need the prayers of the church, but can we all acknowledge and admit we need to do better at mentioning Jesus? Not just because of our love for him, but our love, not our justification, but our love for everyone in our lives that we claim to love. Can we help you in this walk? There'll be men at the front, men at the back to talk. Let's start with a mention. Can we help you? Come as we stand and sing.